So good afternoon. Happy Pi Day, everybody, and thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the Real Estate Rundown for March 14th. This is going to be what agents need to know about homeowners insurance. We're very lucky to have Mackenzie Redding with us this week, who's going to be helping talk about that. So let me just open her bio really quickly. So I realized I forgot to do that. But before we get started, as always, this presentation is designed to give general information, does not constitute legal, financial, accounting, or insurance advice. And you should definitely be talking to a licensed professional about your specific situation before making any decisions. That is something you should also be passing on to your clients. Make sure they're talking to an insurance professional when they're asking the questions. Mackenzie is great for that sort of thing. That's why we have her on. A little bit about Rosenthal Meyer, and of course we'll talk about Mackenzie in a few minutes, but we are a law firm in Orlando and Long Island. We provide real estate, legal services, estate planning, Medicare, Medicaid planning, probate and business law, and of course we are also a title company. For more information about us, you can go to rosenthalmeyer.com. What do we do for real estate agents and teams? Obviously, we do education about real estate law and title. We provide legal support, and we have meeting space. We have a conference room that's always available for you when we're not using it. We have a couple small rooms. If you ever need somewhere, just come and make some phone calls. I want to come back to the legal support though, because we do work with agents and their clients when there are questions. Let me tell you a little bit about what that looked like today. Today, that looked like I was on the phone with a real estate agent and one of their clients who had a question about capital gains and what counts for basis and things like that. This is one of the services that we provide to our partners. It's not just we'll answer questions for you, but if you need us to hop on a quick call with your client, we are there. We are able to do that. Let's talk a little bit about upcoming events. April 11th, registration link will go out, will be live later today. Don't get sued. Mistakes that agents make that end up in court. I'm pulling court cases for that still. May 9th is Homestead, portability and probate. What do you need to know about Homestead that you can advise your clients? And what do you need to know about Homestead when you're dealing with a probate property? We're going to get into two kind of different topics. We're going to spend a little bit of time on that. June 13th, we'll be with Matt Rosenthal from our firm. He'll be talking about what you need to know about trust, powers of attorney, and ladybird deeds. That's going to be an interesting one. I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably even jump on, even though I'll probably be helping him draft the presentation. And then in July, we have social media marketing with Michaela Walker from the Carrison Group. She's who got me on TikTok. She's who got me 4,500 followers. And then the fact that I stopped posting videos is really more my fault than hers. So that's going to be a good one. Highly recommend that one for realtors because social media is huge, and there's going to be she'll have some really good information about what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. And then we've got future dates coming up with August 8th, September 12th. We have a lot of these planned. We have some really interesting speakers coming up. Chad Kraft is on the calendar. James Grove, who you may know from Hole in the Wall drywall repair and remediation, he's going to be coming and talk about what you need to know on the repair side for when you're selling. And so we're looking forward to some really good presentations coming up for the end of this year, and we've already started planning next year. So, you know, we're looking at some really interesting things coming up. Office hours is back. Let me tell you a little bit what this was, and I stopped doing it. I'm bringing it back. On April 5th, I'm going to open a Zoom room at 3 p.m. I'm going to close it when people are gone. And I'm going to have no agenda. It's not going to be planned. It's not going to be scripted. It's going to be entirely questions from you. What do you want to know? What's going on? How can I help you? It's going to be starting at 3 p.m. I'm going to close it when people have asked all their questions, or when nobody, or at 5 when it's time for me to go home. But realistically, I'll keep it open for as long as we need. It is an open forum, question and answer. I've had realtors come with questions. I've had realtors come without questions because they just want to learn. They just want to see what other people have questions about. So that's always a good time. I obviously highly recommend coming because I'm the presenter and I'm wonderful, but I highly recommend if you have questions, that's a great time to come. I'm still figuring out the registration for that. There probably won't be. It'll probably just be a Zoom link. So plan to just click on the link to be able to come. We probably won't ask for registration for that. It'll probably just be show up. And like I said, I'll be there from 3. I will be there for at least an hour from 3 to 4. And then if people are still there, I'll stick around. If people have stopped coming in, usually it does peter out after about an hour, but I'll stick around at least for 1 hour. All right. So that's what I've got for today. So let me introduce you to Mackenzie, who is our presenter, and I'm very excited. She should have screen sharing capability as well. Mackenzie Redding owns Goosehead Insurance in Maitland. She was born in Osage Beach, Missouri. I think I pronounced that right. And moved to Oviedo, Florida in the 4th grade. She now lives in the City Beautiful with her husband, Jake, and 4 fur children. She graduated summa cum laude with a bachelor's in biomedical sciences from the University of Central Florida in 2015. She began her insurance career in 2016 at Allstate and was quickly recruited by Brightway Insurance, where she stayed for over 3 years. In 2019, she became the operating owner and agency principal of a Goosehead Insurance agency in Orlando. She left in September 2021 to launch her own Goosehead franchise with a fervent desire to package sound business practices and exceptional sales service. Mackenzie can assist the entire state of Florida with their personal insurance needs. Customers will find Mackenzie to be forthright and diligent, and even if unable to assist a client, she will work to ensure their insurance needs are taken care of. Outside of the office, you can find Mackenzie listening to crime podcasts, reading books, and enjoying the sun at the beach. All right, so we're going to make her the spotlight presenter. And thank you, Mackenzie. I'm going to let you take it away.
Perfect. Thank you. And thanks for having me again. So I know some of you on here I've actually spoke to in the past or presented for in the past. So you may have heard some of this before, but things are constantly changing in insurance, as we all are aware. And it seems things are changing right now pretty much on a monthly basis. You know, starting back on with my own franchise now, been reviewing guidelines and, you know, back in February, and things have changed as of March 1st. So it's a work in progress always for us agents. So, so basically right now, let me make sure that this is working. There we go. Okay. So we're going to review a 4-point inspection together. And then we're going to talk about what's going on with the insurance rates. And then I'll finish up with a Q&A. So if you have any questions while I'm going through the slides, feel free to jot them down, and I'm happy to help afterwards. And then let's go from there. This should take about 20 minutes or so, and I'll start a clock so I don't talk all day. It's easy to do. So, all right, we're going to first start with the electrical section here. And looking at the 4-point inspection, you can see that we're looking at a main panel, a second panel. It's going to talk about the type of wiring, if there's any hazards present, the condition, age of panel, etc. So keep in mind, I always like to review the hard to place panels right now in insurance are going to be our Federal Pacific electrical panels, Stablock, Zinsco, Challenger, and Sylvania. So same list that you probably see over and over again, except as of 2022, it's even harder to place those panels. So as some of you probably know, Citizens is still an option for them, assuming the entire 4 points in good condition. But I always recommend my clients and my partners that I work with, if we're placing the home with Citizens, it's a good fit, you know, we proceed. I always recommend the client to go ahead and keep that savings account for going ahead and potentially replacing those panels in the future, because again, Citizens can change their guidelines at any point. So every year something's different. Last year, they took polybutylene up to a certain age. This year, it's different. So those policies are either going to have to replumb or they're going to be canceled. So it's just something that they can change their guidelines at any time, just as any other carrier. It's important to keep that savings account and make upgrades as needed. And then the hard to place wiring, of course, is our cloth, knob and tube, and aluminum. And again, Citizens will take the majority of this. For aluminum, they want to see Alumicon connectors. So it has to be remediated with Alumicon connectors. They don't just take aluminum. And then, or you can, of course, the client can rewire with copper, which is preferred because a lot of times we can pull them out of the Citizens market. So when you're looking at the 4-point inspection in the electrical system, we're looking at to see if there's any of these things present. And then of course, what hazards, if any, are present. Because like I said, again, you guys are probably seeing your clients being quoted quite often with Citizens. And if there's any type of double taps, exposed wiring, etc., or if the general condition's an unsatisfactory condition, Citizens is not going to write the risk. They also have AMP requirements and different types of things. They do take fuse breakers. So I did actually come across one of those last week, first time ever, really. So again, they do take those fuse panels or breakers, but it has to be in good condition. And again, it's something I would recommend they look at replacing or repairing if something's fishy in it, just to make sure their house is safe, because a lot of these can be fire hazards at the end of the day for the homeowner. So that's kind of a little bit about the electrical. I'll move on to the next thing. I'm trying to see there, that worked. Okay. So the plumbing is, we're gonna need to know a couple of things. The first part's telling us about the water heater. So we need to specifically look at the water heater age. You'll see on this 4-point inspection that I snipped, the inspector did note the age of the water heater on here. That's not necessarily common. A lot of them put it underneath where the photos are. So as long as it's either in this section or in the photos, that's going to be helpful, because more and more carriers are going to require that the water heater be 15 years or younger, some even 10 and younger if it's located in the home or dependent on where it's located. And we want to make sure that there's a TPR, that temperature pressure relief valve, on the water heater. It's installed properly. There's no active leaks. There's no corrosion. Anytime you see the corrosions on the water heaters, that can lead to water claims or pipe or like the whole thing literally bursting, or little holes that can cause leaks in the home or garage, wherever it's located. And then Citizens, I'm using Citizens as an example a lot because unfortunately the majority of homes right now in Central Florida are being placed with Citizens. So Citizens is they're gonna require all of this to be in good working order, and that there's a TPR. So if there's not a TPR, they're not gonna write it. The seller is gonna have to make these changes to be eligible to be placed with Citizens. And we all know that right now sellers aren't really willing to make those changes for us. And then also the hard to place plumbing. So the polybutylene, galvanized, cast iron, these are three still are the most common hard to place plumbing. We still have options for them. As I said, it's just limited on who's going to write them. And the majority of the carriers that will write these are going to exclude water. And that will be becoming more and more common, especially until it's like full, until they're then require just replacements. So in this case, you'll see the age of the piping is original, and it is copper. Copper is still considered the good type of plumbing here. And then just in that middle section, the inspector is noting going through and looking at the different fixtures and connections to appliances. And we want to make sure that these are also in satisfactory condition if present. If they are unsatisfactory condition, of course, the carrier is either going to replace that or expect the buyer to replace or repair that item, or the seller, of course, needs to make that fix for the buyer there. Okay, and that's about it on there. So probably the most important and hardest and most often changing things here are the roofs. So types of roofs that we may see here: shingles, tile, metal, tar and gravel, rolled. I'm sure we've seen them all, right? So the 4-point inspection is going to be looking at both the predominant and secondary roofs. If there is a secondary, sometimes there's not, of course, but this home in particular, it had a shingle. It also had that rolled roof on the back of the house. So the inspector needs to be noting the year of the roof, how many years useful life is remaining, if there's a permit, hopefully there is one. And then if it's been fully replaced or if it's just partial replacements, if there was like repairs completed or something, the condition, and then if there's any hazards or existing damage to the roof. And this is super, super important. So right now, more and more carriers have set the standard that they want to see these shingles replaced every 10 years. Some are still allowing up to 15, some 20, we still have options for 2025. Again, it's limited. And the carriers that will do it are going to exclude the roof. And a lot of times it's up to that homeowner to go ahead and replace that roof after closing if the seller's not willing to of course, make that change. And we still have carriers that also do actual cash value, which is insuring the roof with depreciation included. And interestingly, more and more carriers are swapping to that ACV, actual cash value, on all the policies. So Florida is actually one of the only states that was still replacing roofs at replacement costs when they were 20 years old, which has caused a lot of issues with all these fraudulent roof claims being filed. Other states, they say, okay, just an example, if you're replacing your roof 2022 and something happens, they're going to give you 100% on that roof. If the roof's 2010, they may give you 40%. So it just depends on the carrier, but more and more carriers are leaning towards that payment schedule on their homeowners policy forms nowadays. Some it's just literally included. Some you can add it and it decreases the premium. So it just depends on the policy form and the carrier. But keep that in mind. And then another thing that you'll probably notice, or again, may have already started to notice, is that the carriers are saying, hey, we'll take, like there's, for instance, one in particular I'm thinking of, they'll say, hey, I'll go ahead and insure that shingle roof up to 15 years old, but we're going to do the same for metal. So they're putting metal and shingle, those very different, obviously, materials in the same category, saying, hey, we're going to only insure them up to 10, 15 years old. So when a client moves into a home, they may not necessarily spend that double total on bringing it in and replacing it with a metal roof with something that should hopefully last 30, 40, 50 years here in Florida. May not necessarily be worth the money if they're having to replace that metal roof every 10 years versus the shingle being half the price, and they're still going to have to replace it at the same time. So, hopefully things will get better. But honestly, based on the conversations I'm having with my carrier managers, they're not really seeing changes to be done, not even the next 5 years. Hopefully the outlook in insurance is a little bit more positive in the next 10 years. But of course, I feel like every year we have the same conversations with our partners that, hey, yeah, things are actually worse this year. Who knew that was possible, right? In 2021, I'm like, wow, I've never seen insurance be this bad and this strict. In 2022, I'm saying it and I'm still shocked because it's even worse than in 2021. So, and like I said, things are changing on a monthly basis. So just keep in mind, again, the ages of roof, super, super important. And if you see on the 4-point inspection that there's a partial replacement, that needs to be a red flag, because if there are any like patchings of roofs for the shingles, the carriers just look at that as patching over a larger issue, even if it's something small. So they want to see a full replacement, regardless if it's a patch roof or not. Even if it's a roofer says, hey, I can come in, I can just do this repair, the majority of the time they're saying, no, I don't want to see that. I want to see a full roof replacement. Of course, it depends on the age, but more likely than not, they want to see that full replacement. So just keep that in mind too, when working with clients. And then the more easier one, the AC unit. So for the HVAC system, we just want to note the year and in the condition of the unit. So assuming it's a central unit, central AC and heat. So for the HVAC, I get less paranoid because, again, we have carriers that will take older AC units, assuming that they're in great working order. There's no vegetation growing in the units outside, that it's not rusted out. We just want to see it working, right? Also, I've come across a few of these recently, the window units. Okay, sometimes we see these in some of the older parts of like St. Cloud or even Orlando, Winter Park, but we have carriers that will write window units as well. Again, they have to be in good working order. So it can't just be like some random thing from Home Depot they installed to try to, cool down the entire house. So it needs to be a legit system. It needs to be in good working order. And, but still, unfortunately, those can be hard to place here in Florida now too. But again, AC units, like I said, I'm less concerned with those, assuming they're in good condition. There's no leaking. We just, the carriers just want to see that. Age, less concerned about. So what is going on with our insurance rates here? Obviously, it's a mess. You guys already know that. We deal with that with every buyer, I'm assuming too. And I've been laughing too, because on our end, and again, you guys are probably seeing it, I feel like a lot of sellers are coming out of the woodworks, putting their house on the market, and they're selling it as is. And it's becoming very difficult for these buyers to get insurance because they won't make any changes selling it as is. And unfortunately, it's causing a lot of deals to fall through. So, I mean, even last week I had one person sent me 12 deals, 10 fell through because of bad inspections. It seems to be happening quite often to a lot of people. So right now, insurance rates are an all-time high, all-time high in Florida, not just Central Florida. I know a lot of us just sell and list homes here, or work with buyers and sellers here in Central Florida. So I'm just using that as an example. The average premiums increase to roughly $3,500 to $4,500, dependent on the risk. And honestly, it's going to be closer to that $4,000 range. So the older the home, the more expensive the insurance premium. And then on top of that, if the client has claims, or, something, weird, like prior bankruptcy, or they have like, weird dog breed or whatever, it can change who's available to write the home. And then of course, premiums just in general at an all-time high. And this goes for new construction too, because when you guys think about it, back in like 2016, we write new construction homes for $300-$400. Nowadays, it's hard to get by writing new construction home that's under $1,000, $1,500. So again, even new construction homes, insurance rates are much higher than what they were 5, 6, 7 years ago. And they're going to continue to increase for those too. And then if any of you work in South Florida or refer in South Florida, again, rates are on average there of like $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 for the year, just for the home. Auto, again, just as high, right? So we've even come across some of the single family dwellings in South Florida now, like our averages of $12,000, depending on the age and the updates to the home. So it's becoming harder to place the risk, and the premiums are increasing. So I keep bringing up Citizens because, like I said, right now, on average, 7,000 policies per week are being placed with Citizens per week. That's a lot. Back in the day, it was like 1,000 or under. We're up to 7,000 per week. And to be honest with you, that number is increasing. So last year was like 4,000 or 5,000. We're up to 7,000 at the end of last year. They're expecting it to increase to 10,000 to 12,000 within the next 6 months. So the one tricky thing with Citizens, though, is that to be eligible with them, the 4-point inspection has to be clean, which just basically means that there are no issues on the inspection, none whatsoever. And you have to have all the photos that they need. Again, Citizens is becoming harder to place. So if the clients had prior claims, they're going to be requesting information about that claim. They don't care if it's a new home purchase. They want to know the info from the prior house. So it's a lot of really weird situations with them. It's a government ran company, as again, most of you probably know. So it's not a product. It really should be used as a last resort, but unfortunately right now, with very limited options in the area, it's almost a first resort in a lot of cases. And also, again, they tend to be the most affordable option. So even if we have a surplus lines company coming back at $5,000, Citizens may come back at $2,000. So it's like, which is the client going to choose? Probably Citizens. Their policy forms are a little fishy, and something also to keep in mind is when you're insured with Citizens, you really have to work with their team when having a claim. If you don't, they can just limit water, exclude water. It's all different. So every time I'm quoting a policy with Citizens and I'm sending it out to the client, I'm including their claims brochure so they can take some time to read through it, because their claims process is very strict and you have to abide by it for them to provide the level of coverage that the insured really needs. They also don't cover screen enclosures around pools and a bunch of little random things like that. And of course, a lot of homes here in Florida have those cages around the pools, and they really need coverage, especially during hurricane season too. And then lastly here, again, why are the rates so high and like what's going on? So over 75% of claims being filed right now are considered fraudulent. So, and this goes for roof and water claims now. The started in South Florida and it's progressed here to Central Florida. So they call Solo, which is Seminole, Orange Lake, and Osceola counties, the new South Florida. So this has caused rates to significantly increase, and then it's also significantly decreased the amount of carriers and options available for homes. So when we're working with clients, a lot of times the address may be restricted, or for the options, it could be because the carriers, only writing homes that are 10 years and newer, 5 years and newer in this area. So, and again, that's why then Citizens becomes one of the only options. So just keep that in mind. If you guys have any questions on that, let me know. It's just super important nowadays when filing claims to call your agent first, have that discussion, because there's been laws that have been passed last year that's prevented some of the fraudulent issues, but again, it's not enough to make a significant progress on bringing those rates back to normal kind of, and not normal, but even out, not taking these double, triple percentage rate increases. So a couple other things I always like to include, because we're always working on homes together. What else can I help with? All personal lines. So auto, I'm generally asking auto every time I talk to a client, even if it's for a new home purchase or reshop, because we have agency bundles that we can help with. Also flood. Something I like about Goosehead and why we're different is that we're checking the flood zone every time we're running a house. Okay. Every single time our system does it. I can tell you right away if the house is in a flood zone. It's saved deals several times because sometimes people don't know. So the other thing with flood is that we have our just, standard, the NFIP, which is backed by the government, but we also have more private flood options than any other brokerage I've come across. So our rates are awesome. So depending on the type of loan your client is getting, we're going to be able to, regardless, write that NFIP policy or be able to lock in a private flood policy depending on, what's more affordable and what they're allowed to have with their loan. And again, umbrella policies, landlords. So if you have any, and you probably see a lot of this too, especially in Davenport, Kissimmee area, these Airbnbs or even the long-term rentals we can do. We have policies for them. Renters insurance. So anyone renting a home, apartment, etc. I'm asking about jewelry and collectibles every single time. One, to prevent exposure on our end, right? Our attorneys would like to hear that. But two, because home insurance limits the amount of coverage per jewelry, rings, watches, furs, paintings, etc. Generally $1,000 max. So the majority of homeowners do have jewelry or items that need to be scheduled on the policy or placed on a separate policy. And I generally prefer a separate policy because at the end of the day, it'll save them money on appraisals having to be completed every year, and those separate jewelry or collectible policies cover for like missing, disappearance, mysterious disappearance and random things that maybe the home policy doesn't. We can do motorcycles, boats, golf carts, vacant lands, renovations. So if the client's buying a home to do like a renovation loan, we can do those. We can do construction from the ground up, just so much. We have so many options we can do to help insureds. And kind of like I said in my bio here, like if I can't assist the client, I will do my darndest to get them to an agent who can help. That is something that I strive myself on and what sets me apart from other agents. I don't care if I get the sale at the end of the day. Like my job is to help that person and educate the person. And I treat each home as if I'm insuring it for myself and my family, because I want to make sure that the person is covered properly. I've seen too many instances where clients call me later, my house burned down. Like I didn't have this, and this coverage. So they weren't informed, or maybe unfortunately nowadays, a lot of they just shop on price, but I just like to show every option. And make sure my clients are cared for. So that's kind of a little bit about that. Do you guys have any questions I can help with, or weird situations you may be in that I can help with? And if you're not comfortable asking or something comes up later, I have my contact info on here too. So if you want to shoot me an email, text me, I'm happy to try and help. Gabriel's raising his hand. Go ahead.
I wasn't sure what the format was, so I just figured I'd use a little hand raise thing. So you mentioned acronym earlier, and I was trying to figure out what it was, a TPR report or something like that.
Yes, the temperature pressure relief valve, TPR, on the water heater.
Got it. The TPR from the water heater. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so a question I do have about roofs in general, just to kind of piggyback on that one. You mentioned that some agencies are now taking an approach of, it's 5 years of life have already passed on that roof, so they're going to basically cover whatever percentage of life is left, essentially, up until a certain period of time, and then you just gotta get it completely replaced at that point.
Right.
Okay, so if and this is a personal question, is if my properties have aged roofs and I've never taken care of them at some point, basically if I try to file a claim, the insurance company will probably say no because it's over whatever the time frame is, and then at that point they might just go ahead and cancel my policy altogether because I never replaced it. That's what I assume.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think, and something I should have included, which is about in the fraud, like talking about fraud, I think one of the main issues that's happening right now are these door-to-door, these door-to-door roofers or scammers that we're seeing, is that they're taking advantage of people in the sense of, hey, we can get you a claim filed in a free roof because of a storm that happened 5 years ago or whatever. There's laws that have now brought that to a halt a little bit, but people tend to forget that home insurance should be used for catastrophic purposes and not for upkeep. So it's exactly as you said, for sure. So if a carrier says like, hey, we're going to take a roof up to 10 years old, you buy the house, it's 8 years old, 2 years later, they're more than likely going to want to see a roof replacement, or they may non-renew the policy just because they want to see that upkeep. Sometimes you can be grandfathered in, it just, depends on the situation, but I think that's becoming a serious issue with today, is that they call, like, when I say, when you have a claim, please call the agent first, because there's been so many times where I've seen claims on stuff and their AC breaks or something, and they try to use it as like a home warranty versus versus as something catastrophic.
And for, sorry, one last thing, for wind mitigation testing, is that something that has just become more of a norm these days, to have wind mitigation tests done, like requests from carriers? Or
yes, so if the wind mitigation inspection generally will lower the rate of the insurance, especially in South Florida having one. So it's going to be required if the home was built before 2002 and has a new roof.
Okay.
The home was built after 2002, regardless if there's a new roof, it generally is not needed because the carrier is already including discounts because the home's built up to code. So it just depends. And if you come across any of that, if the buyer's looking at a house and you want to double check before they pay the extra for the inspection, you can always let us know. We can, double check.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anytime. Justin, you're on mute.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So the first one, I was trying to get them in. I realized now I was on mute. You can hear me. So the first one is, can you walk us through if there's a difference, the 4-point inspection versus a new home inspection? If there's anything that on a new home inspection needs to be included to make sure it covers a 4-point?
So new home inspection. So I can kind of do that. New home inspections aren't going to be my specialty. And in fact, if I receive them, I delete them. Okay. That's my go-to. Receive, delete, receive, delete. I want to see the new home inspection. I want to see the full home inspection unless the carrier is asking me to submit a full home inspection, because a lot of times there's a lot of issues on full home inspections that we don't want to see. Insurance carriers strictly care about the 4 points of the home: the roof, the AC unit, the plumbing / water heater, and the electrical system. That's it. So all the extra stuff like the sidewalk and the stucco and the screen enclosure around the pool, I don't want to know about any of that. That's up to the client to look at on their full home inspection, or you to review, or however you handle that with your clients. So on insurance side, I care about these 4 things. Now, to piggyback on that, all carriers in the state of Florida complete their own inspections of the home after closing. Most just do exterior, some do interior and exterior. And sometimes when they do those full home inspections, again, when they're doing those, they're completing their own 4-point inspection on their own time, their own pay. Like the client's not paying for that the majority of the time. But if they're walking around the house and they see a ginormous stucco crack, they're going to want that fixed. Okay. So they'll get back to us on that, or a big tree hanging over the house. They're going to want that tree trimmed back. So again, I don't want to see the full home inspection unless I ask for it. Some carriers are now requiring that, but the majority of the time, I just want to see that 4-point, looking at the 4 points of the house.
So you should, so when doing a buyer's inspection, do you want the inspector then to also, they can take the full home inspection, turn it into a 4-point then?
Yeah, that's exactly what they do. Yeah. I know, again, you guys are probably seeing it a lot too, but I'm seeing a lot of buyers waive inspections. It's never, ever something I recommend if someone's doing that. And a lot of times, depending on the age, they can't even get insurance if the home's like over 30 or 40 years old, because the carrier is going to require a 4-point anyways. So if the client's doing the full home inspection, just have the inspector tack on the 4-point limit, depending on the age and what packages they have. And every inspector is different. Some of them do packages and stuff.
And then let me ask one last question.
Mm-hmm.
I know Citizens is used to be the insurance of last resort. In fact, you talked about it a little bit. What does it look like in your view with Citizens taking on so many more files now? Not just that they were taking on before, but even then that they're really supposed to be taking on. Do you think we're going to see problems with Citizens in terms of from the one side, from customer services being overworked, or to the other side with their risk ability? That's
a good question. And that is in limbo. I'll tell you what my honest opinion is. Citizens can't be writing for the rest of the freaking year, next year, and the next year after that. There's no way that one carrier can withstand all these policies in Florida. So what do I think is going to happen with that? I don't think Citizens has been hit by the fraudulent claims like all the other carriers. So there's so many carriers that have been went insolvent the past couple of years. So with Citizens being backed by the government, of course, like at the end of the day, something's going to increase to make us pay for those policyholders. I don't think it can go on forever. So I do think that at some point Citizens is going to tighten up, just as all the other standard companies are tightening up. But to be honest with you, we don't know what that looks like and when that's going to happen. Just so you guys kind of have a heads up too, the new ratings, the new demo tech ratings should be released with, like, I believe it's second quarter, maybe end of first quarter that they're released. And there's currently 12 standard carriers being looked at to potentially lose their A rating with demo tech. So when a carrier loses their A rating, they're either going to have to be bought up by another carrier or they're going to go insolvent. So we don't know who those 12 carriers are. I know a couple of the carriers that are not on the list, because if you're on the list, you're probably not going to brag about being on the list. So I know a couple that aren't on the list, but again, I think with those influx of insurance being non-renewed this year, potentially, if they don't get their stuff together, those will then also be placed with Citizens more than likely. So it's just going to be interesting. It's really hard to tell, but all I can say is that there's no way Citizens is going to stay this cheap, and there's no way that they're going to be able to continue taking the amount of policies they're taking, especially if we get a catastrophic event that hits Florida, because they're going to be paying out a lot of money. So it'll be interesting.
All right. Are there any other questions? I don't see any other questions. There's none in the chat. So I'll leave it open for just another minute, see if there are any last questions.
Yeah, if you guys think of anything, like I said, feel free to email, call me, text me, whatever, find me on social media. I'm happy to help when I can. I'll always be honest, like I said, regardless if I'm helping, I can help the client or not, because it's all, honestly, honesty is hard to find nowadays. So I do pride myself on being honest with my clients and my partners, even if the truth hurts.
Presentation. If you want to get in touch with her, she sent out her information. If you ask me to forward her information on to you, forward your information on to her, that'll be done a little later on today. And then I want to thank everybody for joining us. I hope to see you next month for, again, Don't Get Sued, which I'm hoping will be a fun and lively presentation. And I want to thank everybody. I'm going to end it here, and I will speak to everybody hopefully in the coming weeks. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Have a great
Justin.
month. Have a great month,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.